I knew that I had this opportunity to provide jobs for more people. And that was super motivating for me. I wanted to have a bigger team. I wanted to make sure we kept it as family, though.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Build Your Team Show. As always, I am your host, Atiba, and today I've got a special guest here with me, Dr. Recker, and we're about to have a really fascinating conversation. I say that because he owns two businesses in two completely different sectors and has built teams, and yeah, just understanding the dynamics of building teams in different sectors alone will make this a ton of fun. So buckle up. Let's go. Eric, welcome to the show, my friend.
Atiba, I'm so excited to be here. We're going to have a great conversation.
Yes. So I started by saying you have two businesses, but I want to go back to when you decided that it was time to not be alone in your business and hire your first person and what that was like. So tell us, paint the picture and then tell us kind of psychologically, financially, any of those types of things. What was going on and what were you dealing with that made you do that?
Yeah, I love that. So I actually started out, I'm a dentist by trade. And so I started out, my dad bought another dental practice and merged his practice with this practice. So I had an instant practice when I started right away. And so I worked for my dad. So I sat in when he would hire somebody. I helped him with the decisions, all of that kind of stuff. But I didn't do the hiring by myself until I bought the practice from him. And I remember what that was like. Oh, man. Because my dad was an amazing dentist. He's an amazing human. I learned a lot from him, but he got to a point where he was towards the end of his career. So he was not as concerned with growing the business. He wanted to take care of his people. Well, I was still at the point where I wanted to grow the business. I knew in growing the business, it would be good for my family. I knew it would be good for my patients. I knew it would be really good for the people who worked for me because I knew how to be around people. And I knew that I had this opportunity to provide jobs for more people. And that was super motivating for me. So I wanted to have a bigger team. I wanted to make sure we kept it as family, though. So that is one thing that's been huge to me, is knowing that you have to hire for your culture. Absolutely. If you bring one person in, I don't care how desperate you are for help. If you bring one person in that does not fit in your culture, good luck, because one person can ruin, I don't care how big your business is. And the smaller that you are, let's say there's three of you and you add one, well, you've just changed a third of the dynamic. You
At
just
least.
changed at least, and maybe more, depends how influential that person is. So I think one of the biggest things I can say is know that you have to be hiring for culture. You have to be hiring for someone who fits into your family. And to me, that's huge. But man, it was scary as heck the first time I did it.
I bet it was. So did you know that lesson going in because of what you watched your dad do, that culture was so important?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw how he treated his employees, our employees. I saw how he treated his patients, and I knew that's how I wanted to treat people. And so I made sure that I hired people who would treat people like that. So in the interview, we'd actually talk about some scenarios because I wanted to know not just I'm not a big fan of what's your biggest strength? What's your biggest weakness? Well, my biggest weakness is I just try too darn hard. Come on, let's not do that. Let's have an interview with some scenarios. When you hire somebody, do you want to know how they're going to treat someone if they sit at your front desk, or if they're the face of your business, or if they're on the phone? Role play a little bit. Do some of those things so that you can see actually in a practical setting how they're going to fit in. Because just asking questions to me was not great. I wanted to know what people were like as a person. I wanted to know what they did for hobbies outside of work. I want to know, are they balanced people, or are they going to be more tend to burn out and stuff like that? So those things were hugely important to me.
Yeah, that's really great. And so it's the number one. I completely agree with you. And we talk about that here on the show all the time that, you've got to hire for fit first, right? And it does. It starts, I'd even argue it starts even before the interview process in the job post and the way that's crafted, right? But I want to dive in with you on the interview process and where you are there in the questions and the scenarios. Because in talking to a lot of business owners and over time, I've learned that they struggle with that. They hear it. They may hear me say it. They may hear you say it that, oh, you got to ask scenarios. And then they get it to the interview process and either they ask a scenario if they can come up with one. And if the person doesn't give the exact right answer, it's a no. Right. So how do you approach unpacking the answer that you get in a scenario?
Yeah, I love that. So, we're not looking necessarily for perfection, we're looking for progress. So, a lot of times I'll say, at your previous job, when this has happened, how have you handled it?
Mhm.
And how would you handle it differently if you were to handle now? So, a lot of times it's not that they would come up with the perfect thing to do in that scenario. I want to know their thought process. Are they thinking selfishly? Are they thinking with the group in mind? Are they thinking with the family in mind? Or are they just thinking, man, I got to get my backside out of here at 5 o'clock no matter what? And that is the only thing that I'm thinking about. So, a lot of it is you want to have people who are good critical thinkers for sure, especially in smaller businesses. There's a good chance you're going to ask them to help brainstorm what's happening. So, and the crazy thing is, I think we all know this, there's not much that's new under the sun. There are variations of things that have happened before. So, chances are, in their previous experiences, even if it's outside of your industry, they've had a scenario where they haven't gotten along with a coworker. Okay, how did you work through that? Well, I just left them alone. Okay, let's talk about that. So I like to basically see, can they work through a logical thought process, or are they just, I hate this person, I'm throwing my hands up and I'm going to not have anything to do with them.
Yeah. So in there, you just touched on something there that I think is really, really important and critical. So you gave a scenario, they gave an answer, but then you followed up their answer with another question, right? So how far then do you dig? Like, and how important is that the questions that you ask after they give the answer?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. I really want to know how people think. I really want to know what's important to them. I want to know how they process things. I used to feel like I had to be everything to everyone, and it was one of the biggest things that bugged me. So I would come in Monday morning and just be terrified of the week ahead because I felt like I had to be everything to everybody. And that changed when I realized that I couldn't be. If I surrounded myself with the people that I wanted to surround myself with, then I needed to hold them as capable and also tell them, if you have an issue, please come talk to me. But when you come talk to me, at least have a thought of how we can move forward together. And so, what that got some people to do is to solve their things before they even came to me. I had fewer people unload things on me. But just to know that helped me because I didn't feel like I was in it by myself and had to be everything to everybody. But that also put some of the weight on their shoulders. Hey, I'm going to go dump this problem on him, but I better have a thought on how I can help fix it. And then all of a sudden, we're a collaborative team. We're not a problem-based team, which I love. It made all the difference. It really helped me a lot to not feel like I had the whole weight of the business on my shoulders.
So yeah, whole weight of business on shoulders. There are a lot of people who feel that that's the entrepreneurial lifestyle, right? The weight of the world is on your shoulders, but you're saying that there's a different way. You're saying that there's a different opportunity here, right? And so tell me about the before of that though. What was How big was the team? What were you doing? What was life like when you were feeling, because I think that a lot of people are going to be able to relate to this.
Yeah.
Um,
So when I was younger, I was bullied. And so I remember not being able to play. I got to go a little bit back to be able to answer this. So I
sure.
remember being bullied when I was younger, and I was not allowed to play kickball on the recess kickball field. And in Iowa, where I grew up in the early 80s in my small town, kickball was life. And
Mhm.
it wasn't that I was picked last, I wasn't picked. So I was this 9, 10 year old, 8, 9, 10 year old, kind of husky. I hadn't hit my growth spurt. I was one of the youngest in my class, so I wasn't very coordinated, but I wasn't picked. And I knew, dang it, I knew that if I played kickball, I would show them I was good enough, but I didn't get picked. So I remember standing on the sidelines of that field at like third grade and saying, I'm going to be so freaking good at everything that I ever do that no one will ever not pick me. So right then I didn't know what promise I was making to myself at that time, but I turned myself into an animal. Nothing was ever good enough, and it was all on my shoulders. And I think a lot of people who are listening, just like you said, Atiba, are going to be able to relate to that. But I'm here to tell you, the sooner you can figure out that you are playing this game to try to impress bullies that moved on from you 30 plus years ago, the better your life is going to be. Surround yourself with great people and let them help take some of the burden off your shoulders. I was listening to a podcast yesterday. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's other people who have done this. So surround yourself with other people who have done this. You think you're overwhelmed? Find somebody else to be in your circle. Surround yourself with great people. I cannot say that enough. I was really kind of isolating myself at the top, and it was a terrible decision because I had great people in my organization. And once I shared that I was trying to be everything to everybody, I had one of my front desk come up and talk to me who's been super loyal. She's still with us. This was years ago. And she said, Hey, what can I take off your plate?
Mm.
And that was huge. And it helped me realize I don't have to balance all of these plates that are spinning all over the place. I just have to surround myself with good people who can help me figure this stuff out.
Yeah. So, okay. Was there a pivotal moment when you recognized that? Was there a state of life that forced you to recognize that? Or did you just wake up one day and say, I got it now?
Yeah, it was another Monday morning, like all the Monday mornings. And I'm guessing that if I had everybody who was listening raise their hand, there would be a lot of hands raised when I asked, who gets some fear of Mondays? Who worries about what's ahead for the week? A lot of people starts the Sunday scaries, all that kind of stuff. But I would have nights I literally would not sleep because I was so worried about the load that I was going to find when I came into my office on Monday. Literally wouldn't sleep. It was terrible. And I finally realized one morning, so I came to my office. I was there like 5:30 in the morning because I'd been up since 3, and I thought, you know what, I might as well go in.
Yeah.
And our office is kind of set up in an oval, and we have treatment rooms around the edge and front desk and all of that. So I would walk that oval in the morning. And I try to just be quiet and listen or pray or anything to get my mind centered and try to just be focused on the day. And as I was walking, it probably walked 30 or 40 laps. And all of a sudden, I heard just, way deep in your spirit when you hear something. So you can't be everything to everyone, and you don't have to be. I literally fell to my knees into my office, totally dark outside, no lights were on, and just started weeping because couldn't even put my finger on it. I was so burned out. I was so overwhelmed. I was so torched. I was dealing with heart palpitations, chest pain. I was even having panic attacks because it was all so bad. And if you think that's crazy and you're never going to get there, okay, that's awesome, but you can get there. So once I realized that, I thought, okay, now I know what the root of the problem is. Now it's time to start talking to some people about how do I get over this? How do I get past this? And so I believe in surrounding myself with great people. I have a mentor that I meet with once a month. I have a coach that I meet with once a month. And I have 3 inner circle friends that we get together regularly and just share life. We talk about real stuff. So I think the danger is in being an entrepreneur is that you can be an island. So it is ridiculously important to not be an island.
Yes. So, one, I'm glad that you had the mentor, the coach, the 3 inner circle friends that you could go to. Because that was going to be my next question. Is like, okay, so you heard this, you fall, you cry, you realize things got to be different, but then it's like, okay, so then what's next, right? What now do I know it? So what? A lot of
Yeah.
things I know that I can't do anything about, right?
Yep.
So I guess the question then becomes one of that. Let's unpack that whole mentor, coach, inner circle, friends bit. Where did that come from? And yeah, where did that come from for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me say at this point, when this actually happened, I did not have a mentor. I did not have a coach. I had one buddy who we were having lunch every Tuesday. He would come
Okay.
to my office. He's in a different business. He would come to my office, and we would have the balance of an hour, sometimes 45 minutes, whatever, and we would share life. And this happened because his son, it's crazy how this all worked out, but his son had a dental emergency. I needed to see him on a Thursday night, and we came in, did all of that. And then as we were talking, as we settled everything down, and I said, "Hey, do you have anybody in your life that you can just like unload business stuff on?" He's like, "No, I really don't." I said, "Well, why don't we start having lunch once a month?" And so once a month became twice a month, became every Tuesday. And so now probably 3 out of 4 Tuesdays we meet, and that is kind of like this solid ground in the middle of my week. And so that's all I had at the time was really that one person. And I kept pretty much everything else to myself. Once I realized that can't be everything to everybody, I had a patient who I seemed to always be talking to a lot. We'd always just go past the appointment. My team would start to schedule extra time when he came in. And I
Yeah.
finally said to him, I said, "Hey, Stan, any chance you'd want to meet more regularly?" And so then I had two. And then when I started doing my coaching and speaking, wanting to do that, I knew I needed to work with a coach on that. And then along the way, there's been a couple other people. So it's not one of those things where you say, "Oh my gosh, he's got this whole team and I got nobody." No, that's not it at all. You can start small and just have one other person that you can talk to. And guess what? If you don't have anybody, you can hire a coach or you can talk to a therapist or any number of things. Most people who are in business are interested in being mentors for other people who are in business to some degree. We love to do it as business owners. It's just part of our DNA. So the only thing it really takes is your willingness to be vulnerable and reach out to somebody else.
Yeah. So I love the reality of something that I love to say that you experienced. There's a lot of love in that statement. But everything you need is in your sphere of influence,
Yeah, it is.
right?
And the thing that concerns me right now about so many people working remote
Mm-hmm.
is I think it's easy to really isolate ourselves. You know, there's one thing to be connected through Zoom and or Riverside. It's amazing that we're able to have this conversation like this and see each other and do all of this. But there's something about being in the room with somebody, feeling
Yeah.
their energy when they're right there with you, giving them a handshake or a hug, whatever's appropriate, having some of that contact. So I know it's convenient for people to work at home, but if you do, man, you got to find some way to have some of that contact. I just think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, absolutely. So for your companies, Obviously, a dental practice is 99% in person. It's kind of hard to work on someone's teeth over Zoom.
Yep.
I'm sure somebody's tried though.
Yeah.
But then on the coaching side, is that in your team there, that in person or remote?
Yeah. So I do most of my coaching through Zoom. Most of it is remote. I work with my coach through Zoom, and then I do most of my coaching through Zoom. Now, I do have a client who's local, and we meet together, we meet in person. It's a little bit more expensive for this person because there is travel time and it's not much, but it's a longer appointment. Whereas if we do it, we boundary it on Zoom, it's, hey, I have this time to this time, and
Yes,
then
I
I got
know.
a hard stop. So that is really, really nice to have that boundary. But most of what I do with that is remote.
Okay. So how, speaking of connections and isolation and so on and so forth, how do we build? And you may not have an answer for this yet. Okay. And I'll be honest with you and tell you, I've asked a lot of people this question, and the answer is also evolving, I think, as we get more post COVID. But how do we avoid the isolation? How do we build connection and community for our teams and heck, even our clients in this post COVID Zoom friendly, webcam friendly world?
Yeah. Man, I think if I can give you a great answer to that, then I'll have solved probably a third of the world's problems. But I'm a huge fan of making small changes. So I'm also a pilot, and I realize that as I'm flying a plane, if I'm 1 degree off, it's going to make a big difference down the road. And so the analogy for us is if we can make a 1% change in how we do something, eventually that ends up being a big deal. Okay. So the
Yeah.
first thing is find some commonalities. So if you're working remote, find somebody who has common interests of you or a group that has common interests that you have. Okay. There's a ton of them on social media. Chances are there's some people who are local. So if you're into bourbon, there's groups that are into bourbon online. If you're into collecting baseball cards, which I used to do a whole lot of and still do a little bit, there's groups for that. So find people who have commonalities, people who like to watch the same shows that you do, play the same games that you do. But ultimately, and here's the thing that gets uncomfortable for people, is you do have to put yourself out there. You do. I don't know a workaround for that one. Now, you can do that, find some things through social media, some groups, like I said, commonalities, and then try to find out if there's anything that meets local. But ultimately, you are going to have to be able to say to somebody, hey, you want to have a conversation sometime? Hey, you want to grab coffee? Hey, can we have a conversation? And if you're remote, you still have other people that you interface with. And maybe the closest you're going to get is just talking one on one to them with Zoom. And I realize it's harder to build trust and all of that, but start somewhere. What is one thing you can do to be 1% closer to having a relationship with somebody?
That's awesome, especially from the relational standpoint. Now, the name of your coaching business I love, which is Win the Now.
Yep.
Absolutely love it. And so we've talked about building team and we've heard about the dentist practice and you've talked a bit about your coaching, right? But tell us, one, how can people reach you? But then two, who do you serve and what do you help them solve?
Yeah. So win the now is, I call it the mindset of presence. So I think what happens is that most of the time we are either stuck in the past or we're worried about the future. Stuck in the past with that thing that happened to you, that bullying, that business that failed, that relationship that failed, any of that stuff, or worried about the future. What's the future of my business? What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen next week? How am I going to hire people? All of those things. And in doing that, we miss one thing, the one thing that's guaranteed that is right in front of us, and that is now. So we are stuck in either of those extremes and we miss now. So then I take it a step further. We find ways to draw ourselves back into the present moment. Even saying simple things through our mind, I am here, right now, at the dinner table with your family, in a meeting, on Zoom, wherever you are, I am here, right now. And then we look at the different nows that we have in our life throughout the day. So right now, my now is having this interview with you. And then we look at what do wins look like in that now. So wins look like us having a great conversation, getting to know each other, blessing the audience with truth bombs all over the place, and adding value. And then it leaves you and I with another win because we've both felt encouraged as we go on our way. Later on, I'll get back to seeing patients after I'm done with this. And then a win will look like a great patient interaction. It'll look like me listening to the concerns of a patient or a team member. Maybe if they're anxious, we figure out how to help diffuse that a little bit so we can get the dental procedure done. So what I like to do, one thing I like to do with my coaching clients is help them have tools to get back to living life in their present moment. Because I think we're absent participants in our life a lot of the times. So we break all of that down. Another thing that I like to do, and this is what I like to do with groups, and I do workshops and keynotes on this, but it's my burnout journey, how I got all the way down the road to all those awful things that happened. And then something I call the dam analogy, which is a way that talks about how easy it is for us to get burned out because we don't focus on refilling ourselves. So I love to do that. That's usually about a 2-hour workshop. I love to do that with groups of 12 or so. I've done it as a keynote in front of big groups, and it's really amazing to see how the light bulb comes on and people realize, hey, there is something I can do. I don't have to just go down this road and say, I'm going to be burned out. So I work with companies and organizations. I work with what I would consider high achievers who are a little disillusioned on their path of life and want to get to a place where they can feel good about what's ahead and put the pedal down. So I'm guessing that most of the people listening to this show would consider themselves high achievers. So you're my people. I'd love to have a conversation about how we might be able to work together, whether it's people, individuals, or organizations. You can tell how excited I get about it. It's what really makes my heart beat.
Yes, absolutely. And so what's the best way for people to reach you?
Yeah, best place to reach me is through my website. It's just my name, ericrecker.com. I'm sure you have that in show notes and stuff like that. Yeah, but there's a link to the book I wrote, blog that I have on there, to hire me as a coach or a speaker, or just have a conversation. And I do, as a free gift, I do have a 5-day knockback burnout challenge on there. So if you sign up for that, totally free, gives you a series of 5 emails to help you see kind of where you're at and some things you might be able to do to kind of push that burnout back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. And I do think that a lot of people need to hear what you have to say on that side, because burnout is real. For us business owners who are working and shouldering a ton of load that we shouldn't. And I hope y'all heard me on that we shouldn't. Right? We're not supposed to be shouldering that load. And so thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for that perspective on it. Because I think it's, like, as I just said, it's one that's so necessary. Yes, we got to hire for culture, but also subtly in there, you also said, if your culture is jacked up because you're shouldering everything, you're also doing a disservice to the people that you're hiring.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
So, Eric, thank you for being here. I appreciate the time. And everyone, ericrecker.com. Until next time, bye. And as always, Build Your Team is brought to you by Client Attraction Pros. Hey, it's time that you become the thought leader of your industry, and we're going to help you do that and make it fast, easy, and fun.